Hello everyone, welcome back to Northlands National Park. It's time once again for a Planet Zoo build. Today I've got something really exciting and something that I've really grown very quickly passionate about since Christmas. We're building an Arctic Fox Rescue Centre, or an Arctic Fox Rehabilitation and Recovery Centre. This was all inspired by the Save a Fox Rescue Foundation that is based in central Minnesota in the USA. Now, I discovered these guys over Christmas. Their YouTube channel is full of like goodness. Like if you're ever having a bad day, just go to their YouTube channel and you'll see some adorable foxes living their best lives in what is an amazing rescue centre. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Save a Fox Foundation later on in the video, but for now we're just terraforming out an area that is directly across from our seals and our penguins. And I didn't really want to do too much terraforming and eat into the natural landscape that we've been given here, but I felt like this was the most appropriate place to put this because I needed a nice flat piece of land where I could build out this facility in peace without causing too much of an environmental disturbance. So we've already set that in, and we're going to start working on our first auxiliary building, which is basically just going to be a small farmhouse that could be used for staff to stay over, or it would allow other little animals and stuff to be housed within this space. Save a Fox are based in central Minnesota, but they don't reveal the location of their facility for a number of reasons. They have tours where you can actually arrange and book a tour and things, but they don't openly advertise the location of their sanctuary, and that is totally fair enough for many different reasons. So they have a virtual tour where you can have like a video tour of the facility. I watched that a few times and kind of got an idea for the style of buildings that they have on site. So I just wanted to make little nods to it. I'm not going for a perfect one-to-one recreation of the space that they have there. I just want to do my own little take on it and create a nice facility that is going to be a rehab center for Arctic foxes. A little bit more about the work that they do. So basically what they do is they'll take foxes, any kind of species of fox basically. They've got a number of them, but I'm only able to do Arctic foxes here. I could do fennec foxes, but I'd have to build an indoor facility based on the temperature of the biome that we have here. I could also go down the modding route, but I'm not comfortable with that right now, so we're just going to stick with Arctic foxes for now, maybe expand at a later date, maybe bring in some European foxes or something at some point, just to flesh out the structures that we've got here. So, Save a Fox, they will get foxes from fur farms or domesticated foxes that have been seized by federal agents or what have you, and environmental agents, where they've kind of had these poor foxes put into a very difficult and illegal, potentially life-threatening situation, and they give them a space that is open and free and in with other foxes so that they can get that pack mentality back up. They can't be released into the wild because, well, it's an ethical concern and it's also a legal concern. You aren't allowed to release domesticated foxes into the wild. So this is essentially a sanctuary for them, somewhere where they can live out their lives or eventually be adopted again by other domesticated fox kind of keepers. So wonderful work that they do, and if you have a look at their YouTube channel, you will see how much of an impact it has on the lives and the personalities of these foxes, who are so playful and so cute. Whenever I'm having a bad day, I just stick on one of their videos and it just makes me instantly happy. They have some famous foxes. One of them is called Finnegan, and he's kind of like, he's so cheeky and he's got such a personality. So it's really nice to see that anyway, and they're kind of like the mega stars of their rescue center, and you really get to know them all and you get to see their individual personalities, which I think is amazing. Anyway, back on with the build. So this is essentially just going to be a small farmhouse. We're putting a few windows on, a couple of skylights and things, just to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. This was a kind of throwback for me because after doing the Saltwell build and the finishing touches episode on that, I kind of got inspired to go back to my roots and go back to my basic build style. One of the reasons that it's taken me so long to get videos out lately is because I've been going way too elaborate and way too outside of my comfort zone. So I wanted to go back into that for a couple of weeks just to start doing basic stuff again. And I really, really felt my hunger for the game come back, actually. I felt like the last few videos, I felt like I've been grinding and it's never good. And it always, I kind of get to the point where I'm like, I may not want to play Planet Zoo for a bit. And I never want to be like that because I love the game. It's such a relaxation for me. So it's been really nice to come back and do things basic again and still come out with some really good builds that I'm really proud of. So we were just playing around with windows here because one thing I realized was obviously you can see in here the roof and we need to kind of eliminate that. So I didn't actually do it in this build, but off cam I'll go back in, I'll cover up those imperfections where you can actually see the roof through the glass in those windows and sort all of that out. All we were doing here is just putting in some windows and making a few more adjustments, putting a door on. Another thing I did forget to do was put a little fence on around that like little veranda that we've created outside. So that's going to be done off camera as well. And then it was just about getting the doors put in place. We've got that little staircase and then rotating the building around so that it's kind of sitting in nicely against the environment. We're going to do a lot more of this as we expand the facility. Obviously, there's going to be some dedicated staff buildings and things put in here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But now we've set in that first building and we can move on to building a fox hut, fox house, fox hide, whatever you want to call it. So these were ones that I wanted to recreate as best I possibly could to the Save a Fox Foundation ones. And they have a very almost iconic red paint job on certain parts of this. So I did want to recreate that as best I could. And they are basically little sheds that the foxes live in. So they have like a mesh outside with a couple of base wood panels and things in there. So we did that. And then they have bedding in, and some of them have little like toys and stuff in there, but I can't fit them in. And they're a bit smaller than this, but because of the way that pathing in Planet Zoo works, I needed to make these a little bit bigger. And due to, as well, the fact that we don't have a lot of very small pieces that we can use to create these things. So they're a little bit bigger in my recreation than they are in real life. But I really like how these ones turned out. We used a lot of different pieces and also a lot of pieces that we've already used. It also gave me a little bit more practice with working with the mesh work and things. In my previous builds, all I've done is use the larger mesh pieces, so it was nice to actually get into the nitty-gritty of working with some smaller, more intricate pieces to create something that I was really quite happy with. And they have this slanted roof, and I just used some of the East Asian timber eventually that you can paint a different colour, because a lot of the Arctic wood was far too chunky for what I was trying to create, and the fact that we are actually in a small footprint here, so we need to make things a little bit smaller. Bamboo was my first go-to option, but then these Asian wood planks fit perfectly. They really give me what I'm looking for in this, and I was really quite happy that I finally got to use something that was a little bit different. In fact, the East Asian pieces are incredible for use in a number of different building projects because they're so versatile and they've got a lot of different sizes, styles and ways that they can be used. I then brought in some Arctic wood planks. Oh no, these are East Asia as well actually. East Asian planks that were similar to the flooring that we did in the doll sheep habitat to make our roof. I left both sides open because I didn't have any pieces that I could fit in there to fill in that gap. So the sides where they have the angled roof piece, they're just open to the elements for now, which I think I'm not going to change at all. Now this is the iconic part of these sheds. They have a really nice deep red wood trim all the way around the top sides. And I really wanted to put that in because I thought that would be the nod that I needed. So we put them in place, as you can see there, and then put in some bedding. Now, I'd love to be able to use some smaller and more intricate pieces in here to give them like some toys or some little climbing frames, but we just don't have the space and we don't have the ability to do it because of the fact that there's not small pieces. After that, we put in mesh fence. Now, I was going to stick with that, but I decided that I wanted to create my own because that's what I like to do. So I then started building around and doing the usual fence work that I always do. We're going to skip through it in this video, but I'm going to show you the basic structure of what I did, and this is just copy and pasted all the way around. So I used the East Asian wooden pillars and of course my go-to, these Planet Zoo mesh fences. They went all the way around and divided both this habitat and the two that are right next to each other. One thing that I did find interesting was when I put the Arctic foxes in place, they actually were interacting with each other through the fence in the other And the other one, you can see we've put them in here. We have 3 breeding pairs here. So we've got a male and a female in each habitat. And they're going to have like a variety of different things. And something that I really wanted to experiment with was creating pieces of environment that aren't interactable, but you would imagine that they were interactable for the foxes. So I made some tire swings, some bridges, and some other bits and pieces. Decorating with the foliage is really cool. These guys have quite a large coverage limit. You can get up to about 40% coverage in their habitats, which is amazing because it gave me a lot of scope to work with foliage, rock work, and loads of different stuff. And I was really excited to be able to get back and play around with that sort of thing again. So this started off as just a pretty basic one. We put in some nice little flowers to add pops of colour, and our caribou moss, and some rock structures. Just popping down a few more flowers and stuff just to add that nice little bit of colour, and then some cowberry bushes, and finally finishing off with some small white flowers. It's so cute. I love it. I love them. Put in this watering trough, which again, these are going to be present throughout. We're not actually putting in any ponds or anything, so it's going to be important that we make sure that we remember to put in all of our water features and things to make sure that there's water for the foxes. I didn't really want to put ponds in because I feel like I've done that in everything. And I'd really like to do something a little bit different this week. So we tried to fit in some rocks and things around here just to make it look like that watering pipe wasn't just plonked in the middle for no apparent reason. It needed to have a purpose, and I wanted to make sure that I fitted the environment around that piece. So again, it was just putting in flowers and things and making sure that everything was kind of fitting in with the environment, I suppose. Something that I really like to do in builds. And I've actually been watching a lot of the Planet Zoo community streams lately as well, and seeing their builds and what they come out with has been really nice, and it's been really good to take inspiration from that and see the work that they do. So yeah, that was fun. This is something that I was really proud of and something that I really like doing. I attached a rope to the branch of this tree, and then I wanted to create a tire swing. So it would be nice if these were interactable, but they're not, unfortunately. So I struggled to find something that I could use. Some of the ropes and stuff weren't the correct length. They were too long, basically. And eventually I ended up settling on using some of the African bead pieces. So these. And one of them fits absolutely perfectly with what I'm looking for. So here it is. And then we put a wheel in there. Just lined it up so that it fit perfectly. And there you have it. This is our tire swing. And it was so simple, but I really like it. And it does have that nod to the fact that the foxes could run up here, jump in the tire, have a little bit of a swing, and then jump back off. Because these guys love to play. They absolutely love it. It's one of their animations. You see them digging and then they dive into the hole that they dig. And it's so cute. And they do a lot of running around and rolling around in the snow and things. So I really wanted to lean into that playful aspect of them and give them plenty of stuff to do in here. Obviously, as we research a little bit more, I'm going to be unlocking new enrichment items for them and everything. But at this time, we don't have anything. So we're creating stuff. And I wanted to differentiate each of the habitats so that there was something different in each one that was a bit of a signifier. So I did copy and paste the tire swing into each habitat, but I wanted to do something a bit different in each one. So here I'm going to do a frozen pond, and this is just going to be permafrost. Basically, there's going to be constant frost over this, so it never thaws out and you never get the water underneath it. When we get the springtime thaw, where the snow melts for a couple of months here in Northlands, you'll be able to see the ice remaining there, and I just thought that would be a nice little touch. We did put some foliage over it just to make sure that it wasn't too much of a stark contrast to the rest of the build, because I know those ice rock things can tend to look a little bit, they're in your face a little bit too much. Once again, building up some basic rock work, sinking in a few, because one thing I have noticed about my builds lately is a lot of the rocks and stuff kind of just stop. There's no like blend, and I like all of my builds to blend in nicely throughout as you kind of move from A to B and go through. I like the grasses and the plants to sort of fade out into nothingness rather than just being, you've got plants and now you have none. So I wanted to get back to that and start playing around with that a little bit more. The last thing I wanted to do for the signifier in here was create a little little bridge, a little bit of an elevation for the foxes to run across and have a little bit more of that playfulness come through. And I just thought that would be a really nice little touch. So I did make a bridge. I used one of the actual bridge pieces, but as it turns out, the foxes won't go on it. So eventually, by the end of the video, you see I took it out and I just made a log bridge all the way across. This was the bridge piece that we put in. Sadly, it didn't work. I would have loved it if it had worked and we could have used it, but the foxes just don't seem to register it as a part of the environment that they can use. So when you look at their navigable area, it is excluded from that, which is a bit of a shame. But I wasn't too bothered because I still got the effect that I wanted. We still had this nice little elevated run for them to go on, and it was just something that differentiated it from the other two habitats, which was what I was going for in the first place. I moved the feeders around, and actually I've already upgraded the feeders to large feeders because I will tell you about the adorableness that we have had later on. Just as I finished recording all of the build video for it, my foxes grew in numbers right across the board, so I now have families of foxes all over the place, which I'm really excited about because the babies are even cuter than the adults. Anyway, we put in a Christmas tree in this one, and then I was trying to think about what I could do as a signifier for this build, and I decided to build a little run. So I made a little tunnel going all the way around here, just from 2 sections using faux rocks. I left these as the sandy coloured rock, but I may actually change them out with something else, just change the colour of the entire structure. Because this does look good, but I feel like the more I look at it, the less I enjoy the colours. But having the little run in there itself, I really like, because it's fun to watch them run all the way through this. And because it curves round, we put an enrichment item in the gap and then take a couple of bricks out, so that the foxes will come out and go into that place where the enrichment item is, and it actually will drive guests to look in that area. One of the things I was looking to create is making sure that the guests have plenty of visible areas where they can see the Arctic foxes, because there's only one path here that they go up and then they have to turn back on themselves and leave. I didn't want to give too much exposure to the foxes because I know that they can get stressed out and it does lead them to running away and all of that. So this is kind of the little run that I wanted to make, and we just needed to put a roof on this now that it's almost done. And yeah, I'm really excited by it. I thought it was a nice little end and a nice little extra piece of enrichment for this habitat. And again, we end up with 3 differentiating habitats where you can have like a little explore around all 3 of them, and nothing looks quite the same. So that was fun. It was fun to create. I then took that bit out there so that we could put in a cardboard box enrichment item. Another thing I really like about the Arctic foxes and the cardboard boxes, we're just putting a roof on here, just using some of the African wood that we've used in other parts of the zoo, just to keep that continuity throughout of using similar building materials all the way through, but just in a different way. So while I'm putting this in, one thing I really like about the Arctic fox and using the enrichment items, especially the cardboard box, is they'll give it a little nudge and then they will dive into it, and it's so cute. Like, one of the things that I'm really liking as well is the more I'm playing the game and the more I'm discovering these new animals that I've never really used before, the more I'm learning about how much effort has been put in to realize the behaviors of separate and different animals that they've put in place. Like, you don't see the Japanese macaque shares this box as an enrichment item with the Arctic fox, but the macaques don't go in it. They just yeet it about a little bit. Whereas the Arctic fox will dive into the box and have a little shuffle around inside it and then dive back out. And I just love that. I love that they capture the behaviors of these animals so well. And it really makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, I guess. So we're just finishing this one off by putting in a few ferns, little bits of foliage, and having them blend into the rest of the environment like I was trying to do earlier on, just to make sure that I pull back to that original style that I had and have been lacking for some time. The next step was to build a staff area that is just a barn, basically. We're going to put a mechanics workshop in here, as well as a staff room and a keeper hut. And I just wanted to make this a fully fledged barn building, basically. Now, we're not going to be too elaborate on the internal decorations here. We're just going to wall this off as best we can and hide the staff buildings well within it. I also wanted to create a hay loft in this barn, so you'll see in a moment, excusing the camera work, we are just going to roof off a portion all the way through the middle here. And then wall up and roof again over the top of it. And this is basically just going to be filled with bedding so that it just looks like there's hay in here. And we're going to put a few sacks and other bits of bump in there just to flesh it all out. And once that's done, it'll look a little bit more lived in and in tune with the lore that I'm trying to create around this area. Something that I really liked playing with, and again, this didn't take me long at all. And it was really nice to just do something simple yet effective, like how I used to do it. So that was something really nice to get back in tune with and in touch with. Over here, I wanted to make... Originally, what I wanted to do was make a corrugated iron shed, but I didn't really like that idea. And then I thought, what else could I do? We've got this wind turbine here. I don't really know. And then what I ended up doing was I made this just a huge compost bin. I was imagining over here they're going to be pretty environmentally friendly. They're going to want to reuse and repurpose things as much as possible. So we made this compost bin. We just filled it with mulch and then put a load of caribou moss in there just to make it look like there was loads of like leaf and plant matter in there, just to have that like composting down and all of that. I just thought that was just a really simple touch just to finish something off. And then I wanted to build a shed here that would have like lots of different building materials in there and a couple of tools and things. And the height of this at the beginning I didn't really like, so we ended up adjusting it and just dropping it down a touch. I did have a little bit of an issue with using some of the building materials, but it was probably just my own stupidity as opposed to anything else, trying to overcomplicate things like I always do. Like here, I tried to just sit the roof down and it wasn't playing ball at all. It also looked a little bit short, so we added another level onto it. And then finally, it sat in place exactly how I wanted it. Apart from that roof, which just didn't play again. So I don't know what it was. There was something going on with it, but eventually we got it working and it was absolutely fine. And then again, leaning into the simplicity of it all, I just wanted to make sure that everything was basic. Put on a door, put on a couple of windows, and then a planter right at the front of it. So all of this you're just seeing, it's just using the tools that we already have at our disposal rather than creating something brand new. It was nice to just use the stuff that I've already got in front of me and create something that I thought still looked pretty effective. And again, it was really nice to do that thing where you're rediscovering the old building tools that you have and the old pieces and just reusing them to create something. It's something that I talk about in one of my earlier videos where I talk about the inspiration and stuff and how you can start off by just doing something basic and then get more elaborate with it. And here we are. We've put in our bedding and a couple of sacks and things, some of the old orange sacks and the basic little sacks that you can see in there, just to make it look like stuff's been thrown up there. And then it was about working out how they get the stuff up there. So I, once again, used some rope, made kind of like a little loose structure that was kind of like a pulley system. One thing that we could probably put in here as well is a ladder of some description going all the way up to this area, or maybe a little, we could open up one side of the roof and have that as kind of like a staircase going all the way up so that staff can access the roof from that side of things. But again, that's more advanced. That's something that we don't need to do right now. And then it was just a case of working out how they're going to get this up. So we had that. I could have made this a way more elaborate structure and made it a fully fledged kind of pulley system, but I didn't want to do that. That was going to be too time consuming. And for something that is actually just a very minor part of the build, I don't think it was necessary. Eventually, I settled on a pallet. Originally, these were going to be the ones that I used because I thought they looked pretty good. Then this door was an option, but it never quite looked right sat in place. So after trying it again, I gave up on it because I was going to create something a little bit more custom and personalized for it. But eventually we settled on these wooden pallets, which were very basic, very simple, but gave the little indication of what was going on here that I really needed to just finish it off. Had that supporting rope put in place as well. And then there we have it. This is how we get stuff upstairs and into the hayloft, and also how we get stuff down and out of it. Threw down some windows all the way around, and then it was about creating a trim. And originally these Planet Zoo logs were perfect because they gave me that color contrast that I wanted, but they were too slim. So it was going to be a little bit too much work, and work that I didn't really want to do. So eventually I settled on these Australian timber pieces, which were perfect. They gave me a chance to make a nice framework. They had a decent thickness to them, and I looped it all the way around, then framed the hay loft with them. And I actually then carried this on all the way over to the shed and just reused the same technique all the way around. It just adds a little bit more of a colour contrast and gives the colours a little bit more of a dimension to them, so that it doesn't all look like one flat and boring piece. And it's something that I've been really enjoying about building in here, is just finding what pieces work well together in terms of the texture and the colour and how everything coordinates into one. And it was quite nice. Again, we used a different piece, so more and more stuff coming to light. More and more pieces that I'm discovering as I build, and all of it still sitting in with the lore and decor theme of the space that we are creating here at Northlands. We threw in a few daisies, then I put down these trees, and totally didn't realise that they weren't actually part of the biome at all, because I changed my filters. So we got rid of them all and put down something that was a little bit more lore appropriate, with some spruces, some Douglas fir pines, and a few other bits and pieces just to really finish it off. I love those windswept Douglas firs. I think they look fantastic. It's really nice. They give like a nice dramatic feel to something. Dotted a few more trees around, and then I wanted to create kind of like a little stepping stone walkway into the shed by layering some rocks down and just giving them ever so slight rotations to create this almost cobblestone pathway going all the way to the door of the fence. Got rid of the like extra bits of rock that I'd put in there because they distracted a little bit too much from the pathway. And we are just about ready to approach our showcase. Just wanted to add a few touches onto the roof of some of the buildings, a little bit of foliage growing out there just to add a little bit more of a dimension to a build. And then I threw some ivy all the way around the big barn because I thought that would just give it that extra finishing touch. I love having my buildings coated in greenery. I just think it gives that extra little touch to something. And I know like a lot of buildings people would prefer to just have them one flat colour, which is why I've left the farmhouse as it is. And then we created a couple of bushes here just to give a little bit more of a differentiation in the texture of the landscape itself, sinking them down as we move further away from that main piece. And that just about finishes it off, so we're about to go into our showcase, and I really hope you enjoyed the build. So here they are in their natural habitat, having a little bit of a sniff around here. A little bit of an explore, running around. They're so playful, and look at this. The yawn here, about to happen. There she goes, I'm off to sleep, night night. It's so cute, the little tuck that to do, I had to do another one. Here we go. I love it so much. And at night this place really looks impressive. I need to do a little bit of lighting. That's going to come at some point. We'll make sure that that gets done. And then here's that little stepping stones into the shed, which again, we do need a bit of lighting in there. I didn't get a lot of nighttime build opportunities here, so it was really difficult. And look at that, Aurora Borealis over the farmhouse. I think that's incredible. I'm really impressed sometimes by the graphic capabilities of this game for such a like resource intensive game. Just an overhead view here at night time. You can see that we do have a lot of lighting work to put in. I may do that next time I stream, or when I do my first stream. And here we are, having a little play, jumping in the hole that they've dug. The other one, not interested at all in what's going on there. But it's just so nice to see these natural behaviours coming out. And they're just so fluffy. I really like them. And she's going to dart off soon. There we go, having a little wander around. The pack mentality is captured beautifully as well. Here we are on the little run. They go through, they play with a little box, and then they'll come back, which is really nice to see. And there we are, having a little roll around in the snow. Yeah, we caught you. You don't need to look so embarrassed. Yeah, hiya. The little ears and everything, all the movements, having a little scratch. Just so cute. And here we have our little family. 3 cubs in this brood here. Now we'll come for a little feed. One of them a little bit slow there, just having a little cheeky look, and they all run off together once they've finally finished eating. Now, you're going to see an overhead view here, and this is what I mean about the pack, and I really like this. You can see I think that might be the mother at the box there, and the 3 cubs with the father at the back to protect them. That is just such good game design, and there we are jumping in the box for a little sniff around, and out we go. So, I really hope you enjoyed this build, everybody. I had so much fun making it, and it was something that I got so passionate and invested in creating, and I was really, really happy with the outcome. I hope you've all enjoyed it too, and enjoyed listening to me ramble on for half an hour. Do check out the Save a Fox Rescue page and the YouTube channel. I'm going to put some links down in the description. Just honestly fills me with happiness. And I hope you enjoy it too. If you've already seen it, do drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Who's your favourite fox there? And I will see you for the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.